We're here at the P3 conference in Dallas, Texas, the Public-Private Partnership Conference that Enlaye is proud to be sponsoring this year. And I'm joined by Jamey Tesler, former Secretary of Transportation in the great state of Massachusetts, where we're based. Thanks for being with us, Jamey. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and it's great to see so many people here excited about doing great things in infrastructure. So it's been a fun day, and it's been hopefully going to be a great week.
This is a crowd that you're pretty familiar with.
Yeah, and it's had its challenges and it had its successes. So a lot of good energy today. A lot of people looking to the future.
I agree. This has been pretty exciting. Not too many tech or AI startups here, but we're excited to be part because we really see value creation on both sides of the negotiation table, public and private, and this is literally the conference where the public and private meet, so here we are.
How does that feel to be, you're usually in places where there are a lot of people, either as startups or even AI focused. How does it feel to be in a room of owners and builders and leaders in this sector and to really be distinct?
So I love this question because when you get started on something as crazy as trying to bring tech and new ways of doing things to a very old industry, you've got to be motivated by something a little more profound than just, AI helps you be more productive and saves you time, so let's do that in construction. I personally am a built world guy, civil engineer by training. I am absolutely motivated by making projects better, and if you only look at one side of the table for projects, you're missing more than half of the people at the table. So if we just looked at builders or just looked at owners, that would help some of the pain. I think specifically when it comes to what we do, which is risk management, it's the one common language across both sides of the table. I know that you and I have some favorite statistics. One of mine in the US is that the average size of a construction dispute is, $43 million per dispute last year in the US, which is insane. I know you have one about that productivity curve. You want to tell us about that one, Jamey?
Yeah, so let's just do it in the most simple way. If you look at construction productivity in the United States since 1970, or roughly thereabout, over the last 50 years, it has been flat.
Yeah.
Almost zero growth in productivity. There is a Austin Goolsbee, University of Chicago's study on this that is literally called The Strange Problem of Productivity, or something really like that. This is the title. And it's the riddle of how is this industry, unlike every other industry that has seen multiple gains in productivity, flatlined.
Yeah.
And
why are we unique in this not so great way?
And they did a lot of great work in that to say, all right, is it true other places in the world? No, it's actually the United States.
Yeah.
Is it something wrong with the data? No, it holds up. Is it, is it something we're missing? Why? And they present it as a riddle. I think a lot of people, when you go to a place like this, we all have our own ideas as to why.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, to go back to sort of you and what Enlaye does, what I think is really important, and I think what your insight is going the usual path for large projects doesn't work.
No, and we have a lot of data to back that up.
And when you spend time here together, what I think is really important for people to meet you, to learn about what you have to offer, and to think about how to integrate products and services from people like you into projects is because we need to actually stare at that really hard data and recognize it hasn't worked out great.
No.
And if it hasn't worked out great, what is the first rule is do something different.
Yeah, definition of insanity.
Correct.
You try and do the same thing over and again, expecting a different result, doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so that's part of the reason why we're happy to be at this dual conference, but also why, we want to explore with you today. We often get, a little bit of hesitation or worry, maybe some fear from the public owner side, which I think, historically comes from the fact that they have different incentives and different motivations than the private sector. The private sector is quicker to adopt something that makes them even incrementally more productive or incrementally more competitive. An owner thinks a little different, so maybe try and help us understand under the hood why that may be.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about what risk is and risk from different perspectives.
Totally. Yeah.
Because if you're a builder, what risk is different than an owner versus if you're an engineer or architect.
Yeah.
So, we can go back and forth on this, but risk is really in the eye of the beholder.
Absolutely.
And often, in my experience, running a large DOT and having, reporting to a governor who has to get elected, risk is perceived entirely differently.
Totally.
And
You guys have risks that a GC would consider. I mean, reputational and but you guys are beholden to taxpayers. That's a big risk.
so start with the most basic, right? At least
Yeah.
this is true for MassDOT, which I used to run, the MBTA, which I was on the board, and it's true for a lot of public entities. We vote and approve large projects, which means the team that will design and build them, or especially if we do things like P3s,
Yeah.
we will vote that in a public meeting.
Yeah.
We will vote that as a board, which means the first risk is what is the perception and the reality of how
Absolutely.
and who we selected. Was it fair? Was it balanced? Is there any concerns with the team on the day of
Yeah.
selection?
Does the public understand what you're building and why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're not looking 10 years out on the kind of risks that you and teams would look at. We're looking at like day one, can we execute and implement a contract here?
Yeah.
And we have to make that viable for the public. And when you're signing, where you're approving a $1 billion project, that sort of execution risk is more stakeholder based.
Absolutely.
And so it's really, we get worried about anything that changes the process,
Yeah.
that creates a new process that we're unfamiliar with. And so, despite everything I said about construction productivity, about the jobs that go too long, too expensive, and the quality can be questionable, it's really hard to say, yeah, let's just put to the side that process that we
No.
always did to pick who we pick, and let's do a new one
Yeah.
and ask all of us and the elected officials that hire us to go through the pains and risks of a new process.
We've heard a lot about this at this conference. There are some public entities that are still, just dipping their toes into the P3 world because it's a new way of delivering projects. It's a new risk profile. It's not what people are used to, and that is a hurdle that's still scary for some on the owner side.
Yeah, so what's interesting when you think about that is, to go back to a little bit of what, your experience both as a GC
Yeah.
and working on large jobs and now building this company is, so, what I think is interesting about how you think about risk and how that might disrupt in a good way and change the way maybe that we can assemble teams and then projects.
Yeah.
And so maybe share a little bit about that.
Of course. So Jamey's making a reference to the fact that I was a builder for over a decade. So I've been on the other side of the negotiation table. You get an RFQ, you get an RFP package, you put a response together. And a lot of how the owner has thought about the project, how they've assembled even the selection process, the scoring, the RFP rules, the contract, the supporting documentation, what they expect from the bidder or the joint venture. All of that really puts together in the GC's mind how credible is this, and it feeds the risk profile. We talk about P3s at this conference, obviously because it's the main topic here, but every P3 is unique. So there's no rinse and repeat process. As much as in construction we use a lot of processes for a lot of very good reasons, when you come to more large, or even not necessarily large, but unique projects, you have to go through the motion. And that's where sometimes people don't really know how to do that, or don't necessarily allocate the resources necessary to do that all the way. And so what we observed at Enlaye was that actually there's a lot of the pain of unlocking the ability to go down that rabbit hole and really understand what you're being asked to provide and what you're signing up for. AI can do a lot of the grunt work of going through what have been really repetitive tasks. And I mean, I know this, but I'm sure you've seen this yourself on the public side, Jamey. When I started my career, we looked at PDF extracts of drawings, everything was in Excel, and everything was Control F in indefinite amounts of PDF pages. And to a large extent, that's still true for a lot of people in this business. There's a lot of things where it used to take a lot of time, and that would feed that flat curve of productivity we were just talking about, where it doesn't need to anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that because it's out there, everyone knows about it and everyone has gotten comfortable with it. That's, I think, the big difference between public owners and builders. Although this is also true on the builder side, is people like us who are trying to we're not trying to revolutionize everything about construction, we're trying to say risk management is time-consuming and complicated. We have tools that make it less murky, that make it a lot more efficient, that mean that you know what you're signing up for, you can actually compare it to what you've done in the past. That is a useful resource for everybody. owners and builders. That's the transformational change we're trying to do. We're not trying to say put AI everywhere, because A, that's not necessary, and B, that's not actually in the best interest of the people who are trying to get projects done.
So let me build off that and make that
Yes,
a
sir.
little bit tangible from past experience. So you take an organization like I used to run, MassDOT.
Yeah.
So every construction season, we have several hundred different construction jobs going at the same time all across state. Depending on the year, that's $1 billion to $2 billion spend.
Yeah.
And all shapes and sizes of bridges and roads and different things. And I think everybody who comes to a conference like this, or we have conversations, can appreciate just literally on site all the different, today and even going forward, the capacity to generate all kinds of information and
totally.
reports about what's happening on the job. But what we're missing is all the things in both the build-up, the selection, the pricing, and the execution of those jobs.
Yeah.
And those are thousands of people working in hundreds of sites owing billions of dollars of work every year. And what we are not doing is working with companies like Enlaye to mine and think differently about what that can teach us.
Yeah. So we often like to say that we try and bring some portfolio mindset to the built world into construction, because we have a tendency, and this is absolutely the case on the GC and the builder side too, because it's a cash flow business, you need to bid projects to exist.
Yeah.
You just go from one job to the next.
Exactly.
And we don't put enough resource. Some companies do, especially the larger ones, will do a lot of lessons learned and that kind of thing. But the way we structure deals is to look at the next one and the next one and just jump from one to the other. And that's why, this is a statistic I use a lot, but 96% of data in this business is sitting on a drive not doing anything. Because we finish one job, we're like, I'd love to spend a lot of time analyzing all that, but I have a need to go bid the next one.
And I smile at that statistic because it's just intuitively true to me. And what's even more interesting is that is just the tip of the iceberg of the data that we could generate.
Totally.
Or the data that we should generate, and what other things that we have not even considered from either an environmental or permitting or a land use, like the related things that end up showing up as project risks.
We
are missing all those always.
Totally. We've solved the logging problem. We can capture stuff and store it somewhere. Now we got to make use of that. That is a gold mine that we're just at, as you say, tip of the iceberg in making use of that. And now that AI is part of the world and is a technology that's proven and very useful, that can start bridging the need. I've got all of this mountain of data, I can start going to analyze it.
And so, when I met you, you have a sense of this from both the construction side and as a team, and with your co-founder, you have the AI.
He's the one with a PhD in AI. He knows how this stuff works. Yeah.
And I'm not at all. I know nothing about this. But what I really, really get is how the comment you just made. So whether you're a really large owner or a small owner, or no matter who you are on the owner side, you do not have the time to pause, reflect, and learn from all that you've done before.
Well, if you wanted to, you'd have to hire someone, which is an expense, a resource.
And that's where I was going to go, which is not only is it a resource, we do have, we don't use the 96% that you said, but so number one, we have never had the moment in time where we said, oh, we could do that and we could be smarter about what we know. But even if we did, the part that I have been persuaded and the part that I'm excited about is sort of, it's the most basic thing of AI.
Yeah.
It's a different form of intelligence.
Yeah.
So just like when I worked at MassDOT and we did very large jobs, and when you go to a conference like this, you bring in the best advisors.
Of course.
And you bring in those advisors to give you a different perspective, different insights. And often you have a team of advisors, so you're not solely dependent. I mean, if you're going to do a multi-billion-dollar project, you got to hear different viewpoints to get there.
You want different opinions.
Correct. And so it gets me to the end of the piece with what Enlaye and AI can do. It can give you that second doctor's opinion on the things that you have never had the opportunity to look at, and that we are generating a mountain of every day, every year.
fact, it can give you more than a second. It can give you a dozen at once.
Yeah.
That's the whole premise. This is one of the most interesting things. It's that, we hear a lot of people who are worried about AI coming for your job and all of this. First of all, there's such a labor shortage in our industry that that's really not something to be worried about. AI can actually unlock value in things that we do that we're sort of stockpiling value and not using it. That is something we can unlock. That is a huge value add for both sides of the table.
Let me give you a very, I'm gonna change the details to protect the innocent and past governors that I've worked for.
Yes, sir.
But the reality of how this really goes then in the end, when you lead an agency, is you go to a meeting that team and your staff and your designers and everybody has worked for years on. And we say, we're gonna close this significant tunnel for this period of time and do this. And you go to somebody who's not living with a project, who has constituents who are gonna let's just say be a little angry about that.
Complain,
And then they go through, and so a real project meeting with the principals who decide what gets built in the United States looks like this. Well, what if you change the closures this way? Can we shift it a week? What happens if an ambulance can't get through?
Yeah.
And they come up with all kinds of questions and scenarios. And what you have to do then is say, Governor, great question. We will go back to our team and we'll answer those. And you go back to your design team and they spend a lot of time and money and do their best to answer those. And if I had you, I'd have you in the room and we would simulate
live
all those scenarios, because what a governor, an elected official, their superpower is coming up with the things that people really care about.
Yeah.
And what we as infrastructure people often miss, because we're worried about the project, is those impacts.
It's a different job.
And we could simulate them at that moment.
Yeah.
And we could make the elected officials comfortable that we can deliver and execute these projects.
This is such a good point. And honestly, a lot of people worry that AI is going to replace the one job they do, but in the built world in general, but construction projects in particular, all of risk management is considering outcomes and making an educated opinion on selecting one or several and covering yourself against them. Meaning that not only is it not a bad thing if you get more of them, it's actually part of the exercise and doing it better of here's where it could land. It's still a human, it's still an organization, it's still a bidder that is going to decide this is my stake, this is the one outcome I'm going to, bet the competitive nature of my proposal on, for example. Those are decisions that AI, it can give you a recommendation and do 1,000 different analyses. It's still a team of humans that makes that call.
And the scenarios that I really got to where I would engage as an owner, a company like Enlaye, is those decision-making meetings with the principals where I could real-time be capable of answering those questions. The other one that I think is really interesting, and for anybody who's ever been through them, they would know this, is the risk register days, and they're really days.
Yeah.
Where you sit down and do a multi-day facilitate exercise to build a risk register for a project.
GCs do this too. Everybody's been down the risk register.
And literally, just for those who haven't been through and those who have, I mean, you are asked to imagine anything you can and then to force rank the risk. And we are, and again, this is where AI is a superpower, because it can add a bunch more scenarios that we couldn't imagine as humans, because it will bring more, and it could go through at a deeper level that mountain of data we've been discussing and generate things that we do not perceive and see.
And even if it doesn't come up with that one thing you missed, you've just done it 10 times faster than you ever could, meaning someone in the room can come up with it. You've freed up time to think about the stuff that is actually risky, as opposed to spending a lot of time and resource just getting to a point where you can think about it.
And again, I like, so it's good to talk about real things where they really happen.
Yeah, of course.
So the worst and best of this was a project in Massachusetts, the Green Line Extension Project.
Yeah.
And the basics of the story are, it was a federally funded, intended to be a $2 billion light rail extension. And it exploded into potentially a $3 billion, tracking as a $3 billion investment. And what we were forced to do is, one, pause it.
Yeah.
Two, figure out what went wrong. And three, do a really intensive risk analysis that got us to the point where we could discuss with our board and the governor, should we go or no go on this really important project for the region?
Yeah. Even though you had been through that once before, just to get it off the ground the first time.
we did it. And we did it. And what we had to do is, one, diagnose the risks that came to haunt us
Yeah.
that were manifesting real time, mid-flight, correct course,
Yeah.
and figure out if we had, because it wasn't going to work as a $3 billion project. It wasn't fair to the rest of the Commonwealth. And it could work as a $2 billion project. And we want to do everything in our power to make the project survive and deliver for the community that have been waiting for too long for it. And we figured out a credible way to persuade ourselves,
Yep.
and our board, and the governor, and the communities involved that we could do that. And now you can ride it today.
Yeah.
But what we didn't, but there was always a lot of ifs on that one.
Yeah.
And I remember the day that we opened the largest design build contract bids, and we eventually were able to see pricing for that project. And that was the moment we knew that we could deliver this project.
Yeah.
And there were tears. That's
Yeah.
how important it is.
Of course.
And what I'm getting at, though, is the amount of time and the amount of money and the amount of pain and hardship we went through to, in that point, thank God, successfully diagnosed that we could manage the risk.
This all happened in a span of what? A year? Not
a
even?
year,
Yeah.
2015
Yeah.
to early 2016. We're incredibly proud of how we turned it around. We're incredibly proud of the decisions that the governor and team and the project team got done. But I firmly believe that today I would want to take advantage of the capabilities that you
Yeah.
and others have, and to do that faster and do it more credibly and more confidently.
Because you don't want to live through that again.
I don't ever would want to live through it again.
Yeah.
And I also, just because it worked out, there's so many other projects that doesn't.
Yeah.
And don't exist today. And so I always come back to that as it is the hardest thing to do
Yeah.
to real time when you are in the middle of the storm, to see around you what the risks of flying at you are, and the ability to get it back on the right course.
Yeah, and nobody other than your own self or your entity can actually make the call. You can get as many
Yeah.
scenarios out there as possible. You still have to decide. You still have to tell the governor, yes, we can, no, we can't, and make that real call.
And we are all, I'm going to continue to talk about from
Of
the owner
course.
side, even though,
course.
I'm not there today. But the we in that is, you don't show up at a conference like this. You don't do the work that we all do. You do.
Yeah.
We do as owners. The builders here do. The service sector. Because we believe deeply that in infrastructure, the potential that these projects can deliver.
Absolutely.
So we have a bias towards action. We have a bias towards we're going to
Yeah.
keep going. And what the public needs is the credibility not to trust us, but that we're right.
Yeah.
And what I think in the time, and I think it will take time, is to build confidence that what tools like AI can do is to provide a trust-based, objective,
Yeah.
credible source that these risks are worth it.
That's the one thing we spent the first 2 years of the company nailing, is not being able to do everything under the sun. It's being able to justify what the AI did.
Yeah.
Because you can do as many analyses as you want. In construction, you have to pick. You have to make a call.
Yeah.
There is always a time constraint where you never have 100% of all the information. AI can bridge that gap, get you closer to 100. That's immensely useful. And as I say, risk is the one common language across all stakeholders, all sides of the negotiation table. That's also why, we're not just a builder tool or just an owner tool. I think that we often, as industry, we like to pit those against one another. I think what's nice also about conferences like P3 is that we can start imagining a world where, it's not everybody holding hands and everybody is, perfectly aligned, but there are partnerships, there are thinking in the same way to avoid pains like the one you just described. And that's true of many owners. And let's be clear, the builders never want to have done this whole process, won a contract, and then get it pulled. Like,
No.
That's not a benefit for anybody.
So let's talk, as we maybe are headed to wrapping up, a couple of
course.
things here that are practical, though. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people who have to sit down, estimate, do a build-up, and price a job in the
Yeah.
end still say, okay, but I still got to figure out how to price a job.
Yes.
And the experience both on the owner side and running major project bids, and I think from your experiences, when there is better visibility either through the owner in the build-up to a bid process or through bid teams on risks,
Yeah.
it prices sharper.
Absolutely. And honestly, the market will always end up pricing a risk in some form.
Yeah.
So the bidding process is still the best way to get to those risks. If we do it faster, if we spend right now the amount of time roughly, let's take a 6-month bid, a bidding team will spend half of that time just understanding what's in it.
Yeah.
Which is insane. We should be spending less than 10% of the time, because then we can surface all of it, actually negotiate in those client meetings, and get to something where the gap is smaller, therefore the risk of a claim or of a big misunderstanding down the line is smaller. Because that's the impact we're trying to have here. It's not just trying to make one side better equipped to arm themselves against the other side. It's no, there's a pie in the middle of the table. We both agree what type of pie, the size, and which slices are mine, which ones are yours.
But and again, like the experience from the owner side in pricing jobs, which is a really interesting one.
Yeah.
That is a little counterintuitive. The more realistic you are about the risks that may manifest, you actually get better, lower
For sure.
pricing, because the risks that every bidder carries is less. Because they know you're going in.
And your project feasibility
and
goes up.
Well, because your contingency has identified them.
Yes.
It's actually
You're
in
actually
the
equipped for
contingency.
it.
You're equipped to
Yeah.
the obvious and easy one, but everybody lives through, is what's in the subsurface or conditions that
Yeah.
are going to manifest. If you go in with your eyes open about and the bidding community believes you've credibly thought through those risks,
You've got the lands, you know the permitting situation. All
Yeah.
of these things are essential.
so the more that you go we all want to mitigate or eliminate risks. But
Everybody.
we live in a world where that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The second best is we are transparent, we've taken ownership, and are accountable for the potential risks that come. And so what happens, you get better priced jobs,
Yeah.
you get bid teams that are ready to handle that, and you execute better. And so part of what we actually need to continue to train ourselves to do and to use tools to do is bring those risks to the forefront,
Yeah. As early
talk
as
about
possible.
them openly, and build a bid and contracting process where everybody has confidence that we're not going to, the known unknowns are there. It's baked into the contingency. It's baked into the project management plan. The risk register has them.
Yeah.
And so there are very modest costs to onboard, given the world we live in, capabilities like Enlaye
Yeah.
for owners or bid teams. And when you onboard that, what you are basically doing is giving yourself a much more credible pricing structure
Yeah.
for the entire enterprise, whichever side you're on. And that is really where I think the future is going to be, is that we are the existing teams and all the different services that people bring to get a great job done. There's always going to be capacity for that.
It's a form of risk mitigation in itself.
Yeah.
It's helping you, even if you don't have more time, make better use of it.
Yeah, and I think that, again, at scale, these capabilities are going to help teams succeed better,
Yeah.
price better, and then deliver the jobs we want.
And they're going to make it fun to build again.
And that's what we want, right?
Yeah, we don't say that enough, but do we think that everyone in the industry, the flat line, is happy that we do more paperwork and busy work? We do it for good reasons, but it's not fun.
So I'm laughing because this is always the thing about, you run a large infrastructure agency and you get people always like, why aren't we good at this?
Yeah.
Because we don't do it enough. And they think I'm joking, and I say, no, the muscle memory. The more you build, the better you build.
Yes.
There's still, at the end of the day, especially, it's really important to remember when you come to a conference like this.
Yeah.
Behind all of us is an actual workforce.
Yeah.
And these are labor-intensive, on-site jobs, and that is not changing or being automated anytime soon. And that workforce will do better the more we build.
Yes.
And we owe it to them to get more jobs in the pipeline going.
Exactly.
And then we rinse, repeat, get better, and build
Anything that
confidence
holds out either getting a pipeline of projects out or getting them off the ground or getting them financed is taking away from those people who make it possible to build.
we did the biggest project in the United States in the Central Artery Project, or what people call the Big Dig.
Yeah.
And when that wound down,
That's a great
we did
risk
not
keep case study.
yeah, there's a few things that happened. There's
Famously.
podcast series on that.
Yes.
There's
Highly recommend.
you could
6-episode.
It's
podcast,
there's
really good.
there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that we miss, and that I lived through with the agencies that operate those assets, and we're proud for them, is we didn't keep everybody busy enough who
Yeah.
built up the skills on the workforce side when it ended.
Institutional memory.
And that work, And when you lose that, we wake up every
Takes
day
a
a little bit
decade
weaker
to build
at
again.
this,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And that's the story of why we are not seeing construction productivity gain in the United States is we haven't built enough and we haven't built it well. And I think we walk away, from a few days
Too
here
many
in
things hold
Dallas.
us up.
Let's just build more. Let's get better at this, and let's have a little fun.
Beautiful. Our tagline, Jamey, is build better together. I think that's the best example of what it is we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
Jamey, thanks for coming.
Hey, thank you, Phil.